With Payday having recently been on a massive cut price Steam sale, and on sale again recently for its birthday weekend, I figured there are a decent subset of new players with just the base game looking for some build ideas to get the most out of Payday 2. In my research for this video, I found that in all honesty, with the meta as it is, you can comfortably get away with playing Payday 2 and completing all of its endgame Death Sentence 1 down content without spending a penny. Today I'm going to feature two builds which are virtually just as good as my best 2020 build and best console build setups, so feel free to give them a go whether or not you own the DLCs. You're going to be feeling pretty powerful either way. Without further ado, this is my updated best free-to-play builds for 2020 with no paid DLC weapons, attachments or perk decks. I'd say there are 5 highly powerful Death Sentence orientated free-to-play perk decks: Armorer, Rogue, Sicario, Stoic and Hacker. On the tanky side of things, it would be hard to argue that Armorer is as good as Stoic, whereas Sicario, Hacker and Rogue offer something a bit different, being dodge-centric setups. So in today's video, if only just to stop banging on about Stoic builds, I want to give you 2 free-to-play options. One using the memeable paragon of Payday 2 meta, Dodge, and the other, of course, being a Stoic tank setup. The idea is to offer you a little more variety, let you choose your playstyle, and suggest one build for shorter sightline heists and one for the more open maps. Neither is really stronger than the other, it's just 2 different styles and 2 different weapon types, giving you a little bit of versatility, something I think free-to-play players need as much of as possible. Our first build today uses Rogue, which I'm preferring here to Sicario and Hacker, simply because it requires less situational or player-based inputs to work at max capacity. This gives it a shallower learning curve, making it ideal for beginners. More advanced players who are familiar with the intricacies of Hacker or Sicario may want to switch in those, as when used successfully, they'll reduce the RNG elements of this build. As I mentioned, the second build uses Stoic, a perk deck that requires a little more player input, but relies a lot less on luck and playing percentages. Getting to grips with your equipment, the Hip Flask is pivotal to succeeding with this build. If you want a full explanation of how the deck works and some additional tips and tricks, follow the link in the description or on the end card to my console build, as at around 4 minutes in you'll find an entire section discussing the mechanics of the perk deck, which you should brush up on before you start putting it into practice. Let's get into the Rogue setup first and foremost, starting off with the weapon. To anyone who's been playing Payday since 2018, it won't be a huge surprise that we want to use the Akimbo Goliaths. These shotguns have defined the meta since their free edition in update 178. Being shotguns, the Goliaths can activate the amazing overkill skill, they offer pretty unparalleled DPS in the class, they're quite concealable so fit into all sorts of builds, and just have an amazing feel to them as revolver type shotguns. I set them up here with the free triple AUG buckshot, the short barrel, the silent killer suppressor for some synergy later on, and a concealment boost. Sadly, we go with no gadget, unless you have the Gauge Mod Courier Pack. This gives us just enough concealment at 18 to make this build work. For our secondary of choice, in both builds, we use the compact 40mm grenade launcher, added in update 169.2. Its explosive damage offers a lot of utility and crowd control potential, dealing well with the shields and bulldozers' armoured plating. Small and concealable, the Compact 40 also deals fairly high damage for the category, picking up kills even through Death Sentence health pools, whilst also having very serviceable ammo pickup rate. Here we keep it simple for concealment, packing just the concealment boost and nothing else. Unsurprisingly, as this is a dodge build, we're wearing the suit. For our skills, starting off in Mastermind, you'll be relieved to hear both builds pack Inspire. I realised in the past I focused too much on single player type builds, so maybe underestimated the necessity of Inspire. To get there we go Combat Medic, then Quick Fix, Combat Doctor and Inspire all aced, making this a standard Doctor's Bag build. A spare point goes into Stable Shot. For Enforcer we need Shotgun skills, so Underdog Basic, Shotgun CQB, Shotgun Impact and Close By all aced, and the very necessary Overkill Basic. We also pick up Resilience Aced and Basic Bullseye, a simple 3-point skill that can virtually double your survivability when used well, letting you refill your armor gate every 2 seconds each time you land a headshot. Tanking extra hits with dodge is hugely important because often a single instance of damage is the difference between life and death when wearing only the suit. In Technician, I put a spare point in Hardware Expert, then Ghost is where investment really happens in order to augment the Rogue perk deck. We grab Duck and Cover, Parkour, Inner Pockets and Sneaky Bastard all aced. With Rogue and the suit, we start with a 50% chance to dodge shots that would land otherwise. With our detection risk, Sneaky Bastard offers an extra 9%, and Duck and Cover will give you an additional 10% when running. So in total, we have at best a 69% chance to dodge. You can get higher than this with specific Hacker or Sicario builds, but I found this much dodge chance to be sufficient as long as you're making good use of your armor health gate. In Silent Killer, I pick up Second Wind and the Professional Basic for some extra stability from the suppressor. The real reason why I've suppressed the Goliath though is actually to activate Optical Illusions Aced, giving us just enough concealment to reach that 26 overall detection risk mark. We round off Ghost with Low Blow Aced, also making use of that low detection. Ideally, I'd get down to 25 or below to max out on crit and dodge, and with DLCs, we could easily get there simply by running an explosive round judge. But to keep explosive utility without the gauge shotgun pack, unfortunately this isn't possible. Oh well, I guess free-to-plays have to lose out on something, and I suppose 1% dodge and 3% crit chance isn't the worst price to pay. Finally, in Fugitive, we pick up Equilibrium so we can ace out Akimbo to increase the Goliath's ammo capacity, rounding it off with the always necessary 9 lives aced. On to build option 2, we're going for LMG Stoic, one of my favourite playstyles as of right now. We're not going to have access to the very best LMGs in the game, those being the M60, KSP and Buzzsaw, but the KSP-58, the free-to-play version, still packs a punch. Massive mag size, great ammo capacity and pickup rate, as well as copious DPS are all standard LMG properties, which the KSP-58 has in spades. Unfortunately, it really is just an inferior version of the KSP from the Gauge Weapon Pack 2, but being comparable to the KSP means it's still pretty damn good. Its great stability and accuracy stats for an LMG make it a joy to use. I also love its reload animation in particular. Here, it's modified with no barrel, the tank compensator, lion bipod, stability boost, tactical laser module, and the plastic stock. The compensator is important as getting it up to 86 damage allows it to hit a useful breakpoint on heavy and light SWATs. As before, we use the Compat 40 as our secondary for all the same reasons as above. Without DLCs, it's just the best overall secondary if utility is what you're after. I don't want to get into the ins and outs of Stoic again, as I swear it's all I've been doing lately, but know that your armor choice is important as it's going to be the basis of your total health pool. You can't go wrong with the heavy ballistic, so for simplicity I chose that, but the standard ballistic and lightweight ballistic vests offer a little more mobility for only marginally less health, so give them all a go and see how they feel to you. Onto our Stoic skill setup, we lean heavily into Mastermind, picking up Combat Medic, then acing out Quick Fix, Uppers and Inspire. I've mentioned this before, but having your first aid kit scattered around can really help you out, as Uppers Aced allows them to refill your health whenever you would go down, saving on precious downs and allowing you to tank up multiple health bars worth of damage before negating it all with the Hip Flask. Stoic also gets a ton out of partners in crime, so we go for Jokers, getting Forced Friendship and Joker Basic before investing in Confident Aced, Partners in Crime Aced and Hostage Taker Aced. You will absolutely notice a difference in survivability that 30% extra health with a convert gives you, and having some passive healing with Hostage Taker will definitely save on first aid kits and become a necessity for survival if you ever run out. Again, we put a spare point in Stable Shot, as stability is a precious commodity for LMGs. In Enforcer, we go Resilience, Die Hard and Transporter, all aced, basicking Iron Man to extend our health pool even further. Technician holds my favourite skills over in the Oppressor tree, so we pick up Steady Grip, Fire Control and Surefire all aced, for accuracy, stability and penetration, with Lock and Load Basic for extra mobile functionality, and Body Expertise because LMGs really benefit from it. You guys may argue that I just need to hit more headshots, but the inconsistency of LMG spread over range makes converting my body shots into headshots a huge boon. Also, I don't want to always have to fight with the ever uncooperative bipod to make sure my LMG is consistent. To round things off, in Ghost we get Duck and Cover and Parkour Basic, and in Fugitive it's just 9 lives aced. For the smaller build details, concussion grenades are my go-to throwable for the Rogue variant, and both builds run the electric brass knuckles in the melee slot. For crew management, you know I've done my research here, so for both builds I use a standard core of Quick, Piercing, Inspiring, alongside Invigorator and Accelerator for my first 2 boosts. In the Dodge variant we go Distractor for boost number 3, and in the Stoic build it's Reinforcer. AI weapon wise, to complement the Akimbo Goliaths, I go 2 R93s and a Brenner for range, and for the KSP-58 it's 2 Mosconis and a stakeout, unless I'm on a very close range map where 3 stakeouts always excel. And that does it for both builds, but I don't like leaving you there. Before you head off and try them, I'm going to impart some additional gameplay tips that I found while testing out the builds. First of all, when should you switch between the 2 builds? Well, if you ask me, Rogue is better than Stoic on heists with long sightlines, specifically on Death Sentence difficulty. This is because on Death Sentence, enemies don't suffer from damage fall off over range, so if an enemy can connect shots with you, they will be outputting their maximum damage at all times. This means that dodge builds, which of course operate on the possibility of taking 0 damage, tend to perform better than tank builds when enemies are hitting hard but inconsistently at long ranges. Strangely, because of how pellet firing shotguns work in Payday 2, they're actually quite comfortable at range, so while it defies logic, my Rogue Goliath setup is more designed for wide open maps, whereas the extreme tankiness of the LMG Stoic setup allows you to deal with the barrage of rapid fire you'll encounter at close range, which is more likely to break through your dodge chance. The shotgun is also better when ammo is more abundant, whereas the KSP-58 will maintain its ammo over a longer duration without resupplying. So keep that in mind if you don't think that you can afford to be mobile on the heist. Speaking of, both builds have a reasonably fast ground speed, but the Rogue setup will feel faster, thanks to the suit and parkour ace. Overall, I'd say the Stoic build is marginally harder to use, but with a little practice becomes the more consistent of the 2. For the Rogue build specifically, my best advice is to stay as mobile as you can. Leverage your movement speed and fast hip firing kill time to lead cops on a wild goose chase. Remember, when running, you're going to be even harder to hit, so dashing through crowds is often doable. Ammo is something you do need to keep in the back of your mind because with the Akimbo's monster DPS comes the disadvantages of Akimbo weaponry, mainly being their ammo capacity and pickup rate. It's far from bad, don't get me wrong, but when dealing with multiple bulldozers in particular, you'll likely find yourself running low, so make sure while you move and flank the waves of law enforcers, you keep your eyes peeled for ammo drops. It goes without saying really, but do try and keep overkill procced and ready, as if 20 seconds go by without a shotgun kill, you'll lose 75% of your damage. This means you shouldn't over rely on your grenade launcher secondary. If this does happen, and you can't keep your overkill streak going, you shouldn't have much problem proccing it again from scratch. Just find a light SWAT to do it on, not a minigun dozer. For the Stoic setup, I suggest you wrap your head around its mechanics before going into it. Practice with the hip flask. Generally, you want to use it when you can't just take cover for 4 seconds and regenerate using calm, or if the stored damage is enough to kill you within those 4 seconds. Switching to the Compat 40 and firing into a crowd of standard enemies is a great way to get a rapid hip flask recharge if you're caught out in a pinch and your death is impending. I recommend a more measured approach to movement with this build. You have Die Hard to tank up for objectives and Jokers to distract, but moving at a slower pace and clearing out rooms is generally preferred to the more gung-ho style of Rogue. Cover is another essential factor with Stoic, needing to find it to passively regen, so being more mindful of positioning and more meticulous with how you go about a heist is advisable. Taking things slow is very doable thanks to your huge ammunition pool, allowing you to kill carefully from a distance, whereas the other build demands slightly more rash play to keep it sustained. In all, both builds get the job done excellently, whilst offering remarkably different styles of play. I was actually surprised by just how much I enjoyed using Rogue, a perk deck I swore off years ago after one very unlucky day at the office. I suggest you give them both a try, console players included. It's great to see that Payday 2, even after years of power creep, can still be quite easily tackled using free-to-play weapons and perk decks. Good on Overkill for not allowing the allure of pay to win to take over, so for those of you who just picked up the base game, you're in for a good time. Thanks a lot for watching this video. Coming up next is episode 4 of the storyline. This weekend is going to be a busy one as I'm planning to map out the entire script for the full series. Hopefully you'll stay tuned, and I'll see you all very soon.